Well, it is 10 o'clock and we want to get everybody started off on a good start here on Wednesday. We want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. And for those of you who are joining us later on, we welcome you as well. Today we have a lot of fun coming at you. Slides and visuals, tips for mastering the use of visuals, presented by Ms. Lorna Kibbe. Before that, I'd just like to give a few housekeeping notes. Please put your questions in the chat box and we'll be happy to respond to those either as we go or whenever Ms. Kibbe's ready at the end. We'll take all the questions then. So please feel free to just keep the chat box in there, and comments are always welcome as well, so that we know that you're still awake and participating. And on that note, I want to just say that I'm Brett Augustine, a recovery business advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Centers, which is a leading provider for small businesses. We are also grant funded, which allows us to offer these webinars and many other services at no cost to you. And we hope that you enjoyed today's presentation, which is presented by Ms. Lorna Kibbe. For those of you that don't know Ms. Kibbe, she is an ASBDC conference speaker and has been for many years for good reason. She is known as a leadership expert, and she has over 10 years experience working with the SBDC Florida Gulf Coast University. And we are so happy to have her with us today. Miss Lorna Kibbe.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. June, hi, welcome back. We saw you drop out a while ago. Thanks for being on camera, I love it. So you're probably wondering, how does a leadership expert come to talk to you about presentations? I've done so many presentations over the years. I've been doing this for a very long time. Starting back in college, actually, I was the first time I ever did a live presentation, and kind of knew right then that that's what I wanted to do. About 2 years ago, I had an opportunity to work with a National Speakers Association chapter as the dean of their speaker academy, which was helping new and emerging speakers. And I fell in love with that, loved helping these new speakers, these new presenters, to learn tips about presenting and speaking. It was so great. So as a result, I wrote a book on presentation tips. And I also got certified as a speech coach, as a speaking coach for helping speakers and presenters. And from there, I was like, man, I would love to put together a series about all these tips that I have for presenting for presenters. And that's why we're here today. So I'm going to share my screen now. That's okay with you. I'm going to discontinue your screen. There you go. Thank you. So here we go. All right. So, you know, I could tell you a story about some bad presentations that I've seen, but I almost think that'd probably be a waste of time, because I bet every one of you have stories about bad presentations you've seen. Specifically, today we're going to hone in on the visuals. And the visuals can make or break a presentation. And like I said, I know that you've seen examples. You've seen bad slides. You've seen people who stood in the wrong place and blocked the screen the whole time. You've seen their other distractions in their appearance or what they did on stage with their charts or their visuals, their objects. You've seen it all, I'm sure. I'm going to talk to you today about how to really do well with your visuals and make sure that you're helping to enhance your presentation, because the visuals are so important. You know, our audience really needs visuals. They need to connect all of those things in their mind, what they're hearing and what they're seeing. And when you give them visuals that help them and supplement and complement it, it makes your entire message better, more effective. So that's how we're going to talk today about visuals, how to make everything more effective. There's a simple formula for this. And this is what I'm going to be referring back to through this whole thing. This is the test. They have to meet all three. Any visual that you have has to meet all three of these. First, they have to be visible. Can I see it? You know, you've seen slides where the font is so small that you can't read it, right? You've seen that. Or maybe they use some kind of props, but still from where you're sitting, you can't really understand what they're doing with it. You've seen them use flip charts where you can't read what they're writing. they're sitting there writing away, but you can't read it from where you are, whether it's the angle or because they're using a weird colored marker, right? So you've seen all of that. First rule is it has to be visible to everybody in the room. And that's hard because there are all kinds of things that get in the way with your room. You know, how far away are people sitting? One conference room that I presented in several times for an organization had these huge columns right in the middle of the room, 4 of them, like to hold up the ceiling. There was nothing they could do. And they put the tables right behind those columns every time. You know, the tables were always, you know, lined up in a row. And so 2 rows would be completely behind those columns, which means I could not see the people behind the columns and they couldn't see me. That doesn't pass the rule of visibility. So I'd have to go in and rearrange the room. Your visuals need to be engaging. In other words, interesting. You know, it needs to be something that I look at and say, and I connect in my head to what you're saying, to what I'm seeing. So it's engaging, it's interesting, you know, it's like, oh, that, you know, but not distracting. Just engaging with what you're speaking about. We'll be talking about that some more. And it just needs to be simple. Sometimes we overdo it, you know, just like this slide that I'm using right now. It's very simple, but it gives the message that you need. The thing is sometimes visuals clutter our ability to understand the message because it's just too much. It's distracting. So they need to be visible, engaging, and simple. Those are the rules we're going to follow on everything that we look at today. I'll be showing you these rules over and over again, but this is something for you to jot down because this is the rule in visuals. They have to pass all 3 tests before you use it effectively. Has to be visible, engaging, and simple. So let's talk about some of the visual aids that you use in presentations. Now I'm actually going to talk about all of these: flip charts, graphs, videos, props, your PowerPoint slides, and pictures. I'm sorry. There's this huge green lizard on the window and my dog is going nuts. And I don't know if we're going to survive this presentation, but you can't make this stuff up, right? Let's start with flip charts. Okay. Flip charts can be really amazing. And they're a major staple when we're doing presentations. We see them used all the time. I use them quite a bit. But remember that to use them effectively, they have to pass the rules. They have to be visible, they have to be engaging, and they have to be simple. That's not always easy with flip charts. So before you even consider using flip charts in a presentation, here are some things to consider. First thing is, can everyone in the room see the sheet? You know, if you're up here as the presenter and you have your flip chart and you're writing on it, can everybody see what you're writing? Not just that you are writing, but what you are writing. If they can't see it, fails the test of visibility. Can everyone read it? I mean, how's your handwriting really? Is your handwriting so that people can actually read what you're writing? Or do you sit there and say, I can't even read my own handwriting? Wouldn't be a good idea to use a flip chart if you can't even read your own handwriting. Should you worry about misspellings? Oh, see, this is the problem. Here you are, you're trying to write on a flip chart. Now you're on the spot because things need to look right. What's your audience going to think if you misspell a word? There are some audiences where, you know, it's private, it's just our little group, and that's okay. They won't be affected by misspelled words or mistakes. But there are other audiences that would be deeply impacted if you were to do a misspelling or make some kind of a mistake on your flip chart. So these are just, you know, considerations, things to think about. Is there too much stuff on the sheet? You know, I use flip charts, and like the little example you can see there, it's like once you start using a flip chart sheet, you don't want to pull out another one, you know, because now you got to do something with the first one. So you just keep writing stuff on it. Remember, it has to be simple. Is there too much stuff on it? Are you turning your back to your audience? This is something to consider because as a presenter, you really want to engage with your audience all the time, as we've talked about in some other sessions. So turning your back to the audience for a long period of time is just never really a good idea. So how do you solve that with a flip chart? If you face the audience, then the flip chart is blocking your view from the audience. So these are just things to consider so that we can make sure that we're following our rules. This is a couple of flip charts for a session that I just did. And we were doing a SWOT analysis, you know, strengths, weaknesses, which I now call challenges, opportunities, and threats. And I had the people in the room writing on the flip charts. These were up on the wall. And I asked people to go around and write whatever they thought were the strengths and challenges on these charts. So as you can see, I have a mess. But there are times when this is okay. This was on the wall. People were walking from sheet to sheet, and they were using them to record their thoughts. What matters is what I do with them next. Okay. Question is, are they visible? In this case, they are visible because they're hanging on the wall and people are walking from chart to use them. What you see is people taking pictures of those charts so they can take it back to their desk and now they'll have it. Are they engaging? Yes, they were engaging because these people were making the charts as we went, and people like to make charts and they like to participate. So it was really good for audience participation. It was a simple way to capture the data I was trying to capture. It's not simple to look at after, but it was a simple way to capture the data. Like I said, what matters is what I do with it next. So I use them as a tool for the small group decisions. And it's a good way to get people out of their chairs, to get them up and get them engaged. If I need to, sometimes I ask for a volunteer to write for me. I do not try to write at the same time that I'm presenting. There are so many people in your audience who would love to do it. If you just say, anybody want to write on a flip chart, you'll have hands going up, believe me. Yesterday, I did a presentation. Before I could even ask, someone jumped up and said, I'll write for you. I'm like, great, because you want to be able to facilitate that process if you're using a flip chart. You don't try to present and write on the flip chart. So get a volunteer to do that for you. And here's the secret. After you've done this flip chart, which is usually used for some kind of brainstorming, now just open up your PowerPoint and put the top 3 conclusions right there on the slide. Find a way to consolidate that data for them so that it's useful. Always post them if you use them, all of them, and encourage people to go and take pictures. In one of the sessions that I do, people have to take a test after, and they have to get a certification, they have to actually pass a test. It's all open book. So I encourage them. I give them a break and say, go take pictures of these flip charts. There's all kinds of ideas on here. This will help you in your exam. Let them go. And they really enjoy it because they're part of it. So it can be a really good, useful tool if they're used well, but just to use them as a presenter and try to think that everybody's going to see them, probably not. So are they visible? Are they engaging? And are they simple? Flip charts. I'm going to look at comment. Oh, I see a couple things in chat. I'm just wondering if there are any questions about the use of flip charts. I'm going to try to look. Cut the papers. Oh, yeah. Someone talked about the paper being wasteful. Yeah. I have been in presentations, and this was from June, thank you, where I was embarrassed at how much paper we threw away after the presentation, because some of these certification classes where we do a lot of small group activities and I let them do that, it's embarrassing. And I would get upset because the organization didn't have any way to recycle it. So yeah, that's a consideration too. Are you okay with, just wasting a lot of paper? Are there other ways to do it? But it's a very effective tool for small group, even though it is wasteful, in a way. In a way, it's really not. It's a great investment because a lot of people, yeah, I got a thumbs up from Julie there because that really gets people involved. People love to write on the flip charts and they love using markers. And it's funny because I've done this with a lot of groups where they were doing this for the first time. They were like, you want us to write? And they were excited about that. And I try to use the flip charts with the Post-it strip on it because they're so much easier to put up than tape, right? So I get the Post-it note flip charts, and then you can just stick them right on the wall. It's great. They fit on almost all surfaces. And one time, I've had this happen a couple of times, but I was cracking up because the groups did their flip chart and they were going to present to everybody. And usually when I do the flip chart thing and I have them present, in the debrief, I make the entire room get up and walk to wherever that flip chart is. That way everybody sees it. So that's a good way to use it. I make everybody get up and walk to where their flip chart is and let them present. But the funny thing they did was they didn't understand Post-it paper and flip charts. And they wrote it so that the strip to glue it to the wall was on the bottom. So we had to find some tape real quick. I've had them do them sideways because they never used them before. It's a hoot, but they love them. It's a really, really great tool to use in presentations. So I like flip charts. Just be careful that they're visible, engaging, and simple. Flip charts, good tool, good tool. How about graphs? Graphs are amazing. They have a lot of information. They're very visual. A well-done graph is a great way to show somebody something very quickly, and people can understand it instantly. But if it's not well done, it's just a disaster. And this is not well done. There's so much information on this slide. What are they talking about? See, this is distracting, because what's happening is, instead of listening to you and trying to understand the message and learn, I'm trying to figure out what's on this slide, and I can't even read what it says on the bottom. I have no idea what that says. It's blurry. Item 1, item 2, item 3. This alone this would probably be 3 or 4 different slides. This is just way too much. This is not an effective way to use graphs. It's not visible. We can't see what's going on. It's engaging because, wow, that's a lot of stuff, but it's actually distracting instead of engaging, because now you're not listening to me, you're trying to understand what that says, and it's far from simple. Even this simple one, the survey says, think about our test here. Is it visible? Well, you can read it, it's kind of pretty. Is it engaging or distracting? See, it's distracting because look how much they have to read. And all the time that they're trying to decide, am I supposed to read this or am I supposed to listen to you? Which one? They can't do both. So even though it looks nice and it looks simple, it's far from simple. There's just so much I have to read. So what if I just take this and make it into a graph like this? And the question is, what do you see as the primary public use for this land? Oh, it's speech access. Boom. Now you can listen to me. So you can see the difference in those two slides. I mean, yeah, that looks really pretty, but it's actually distracting instead of engaging, where this tells them exactly what they need to know. Visible, engaging, simple. Don't go too crazy with colors. Colors are nice and pretty, but sometimes the colors are hard to see. And again, they become distracting. So keep it simple. So graphs are a great tool, but you have to be careful how you use them. And a note on graphs, sometimes I'll have classes, like if I'm doing a training or something, I'll have them do a graph for me to get them involved. This is a graph. I've actually done this in several of my sessions. Like halfway through the session, I'll stop and say, I'm going to do a poll. I want to do a poll. I'll give them some Post-it notes, and I put this up on the wall and say, I am loving the session. I'm learning new things. The session's okay, not the worst. I wish I were somewhere else. I'll tell them to take their Post-it note and put it next to the one that applies. And look, I've created a graph. Fortunately, the higher number here is they're loving the session. But I did have one person say it's just okay. Fortunately, I didn't have anyone say it. I wish they were somewhere else. But this is a brave thing to do, right? This poll is really brave because you have to feel really confident in yourself and willing to talk about the result of this when it doesn't go well. But you can see that you could use this with a lot of different things. I mean, you could just do a poll. So instead of like doing it electronically or having people raise their hand, the electronics, there's a lot of great poll everywhere kind of stuff features. But my problem with those things is that although they're slick, there's usually some problem, like the internet doesn't work well or something. And again, this really helps because people get out of their chairs and go do something fun. We like to put stickers on the wall, right? So let's go put stickers on the wall. So there are ways that you can use graphs and still include your audience. And you can see something like that. Yeah, it's visible. They can all see it. It's engaging. I got to be a part of this, right? And it's very, very simple idea. So that's a way maybe you can involve your audience in making your graphs. So your tips on this one for graphs, if you have huge charts, break them into mini charts. If you have information that you really need them to see and you feel like you got to put that slide up there, well, maybe give them a handout. So you're showing it on the screen, but you're not even referring to it. When I do that, I'll say, okay, you see, you have this handout, you have this graph, you see it? And then I'll put the screen dark so that they're not looking at the slide anymore. Because I know the slide is not visible. They can't see it, but they can see it on their paper. So I can talk about the handout that they're looking at if I have some kind of data that I really need them to see. It doesn't pass my test for a slide for putting it up on the screen. A table format is really nice for presenting limited data because the table helps our eyes to align information. So if you have something you just have to put up there, maybe just try putting it in a table, and it probably wouldn't be more than like 3 rows or columns, but that helps my eyes to align and to see the information very quickly that you need me to see. Always read from your notes, not the slide. And I'll probably mention that a couple times today is, with your visuals, you never want to read this stuff verbatim. You can put it up there, but we don't want to just read it verbatim. I can say that. And also watch out for colors because there are some colors that are just really hard to see. It's fun to play with colors, but it's usually a waste of time. And remember that a large population of men in the US are colorblind, and they have some real problem with seeing our slides sometimes. And so do other people who have all kinds of vision problems. It's kind of like me, I don't need glasses, but my doctor says I do. So a lot of time I don't wear glasses, but I don't know what's wrong with him. He's messed up. Then I wonder why I can't see the slides, right? Yeah. So we have to adapt for all of those things with our audience. So those are some tips for using graphs. They're a great tool, but we have to use them the right way. Let's talk about using video. Video. Video can be so effective. We can run into some problems with it. And I've been there and done that. So let's talk about some tips for this. The first thing is think twice before you decide to use a video from YouTube or anything, or any video through live stream. There's just all kinds of potential problems. I have a video converter that I got free, and it's called Any Video Converter. And I can take any video from Zoom or from YouTube, and it converts it to an MP4 file, MP4. And then I can embed that in my slide so that I don't need internet access to play that video. So if you're going to play a video, I would strongly recommend that you not rely on streaming and don't go directly to YouTube, because there's just too many ways it goes wrong. You guys have probably seen this. You've probably sat in a presentation where somebody tried to do that and they can't get it to load, and they're getting frustrated because you can't see the video, or the sound doesn't work because we didn't think about the fact that we need, speakers for video. That's another thing. Yeah, video where the audio wasn't working, right? And it's so frustrating. And the dangerous thing about it is when that happens, even though we have become very tolerant of these kind of things now, we're pretty good about understanding that these things happen. But it also, while you're trying to fix your video, gives me time to switch in my mind from the subject at hand to something else. Let me just check my email while they're looking at that video. And you've lost me. You just lost me. So we didn't pass the engaging test. And if you lose them, it's really hard to get them back. So be really careful about using these. And of course, I would remind you, I think it would be responsible of me to remind you not to violate copyright laws. Just be careful about that. Because I'm in the business, I've actually known a few people that got into some pretty deep trouble because they used content that was copyrighted that they shouldn't have used. And when you have to be especially careful, and this is for Brett, because we just had a discussion about recording. It's when you're recording something, because we're recording this and you're going to be showing it later. That really makes me vulnerable. If I've used some kind of picture in this or some video in this that I didn't have the rights to use, I have a much better chance of getting caught if it's something that we're going to put on demand, right? So be really careful about, not violating the copyright laws, and give serious thought to the length of your video. Serious thought. It's hard for me to, this is something else Brett and I were talking about. How long can you sit still for a movie? How long can you sit still for a video? If I have a 2 or 3 minute video, I feel okay, like I can do it. And I'll tell my audience this video is 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so they know. If you get much past 3 or 4 minutes, you start to run into trouble because people can't hang in there with you. I do have like a couple of training classes where I have longer videos that I need to show. And I'm just upfront with them and tell them, you know, this is going to be 20 minutes. So usually I'll give them a break right before so that they can come back and focus on it, you know, and I'll say, I know this is a long time, but this is really good content. And one thing I find that helps when I do that is sometimes I'll give them like 3 things to look for in the video. You know, see if you can find these things that are going on while you're watching this. And then they're like, well, I gotta, you know, it's kind of like some people in this world who just, they can't stop until they find those 3 things, you know, so they'll watch intensely because they gotta find those 3 things that, you know, you told them to look for. So those are some tips for using it. And like I said, just don't forget too about video, you need speakers to support sound. As a presenter, I forget about this. I had to make myself a checklist because I forget to ask where I'm going, you know, do you have speakers? And not everybody does. And believe me, if you have more than 2 people sitting in the room, using the speakers through your computer are not enough. Not enough. So most places now have the ability to hook in sound, but they got to know that you need it. So just think about, you know, how are they going to hear it? Are they going to be able to hear it? Because that's also distracting. So video can be great. It can be great as long as everybody can see it, right? As long as it's engaging the right amount of time and related to the subject at hand. And as long as it's simple enough for me to like focus on during a presentation like that. There are some videos that, you know, it's hard to focus with a lot of people around you, especially if it's really personal, and I'll have people tune out. So I try not to do that either. You have to be careful. Okay, so that's video. It can be great. It can be awful. All right, next up, props. Have you ever seen somebody use props? You haven't seen that, June? I've seen people use props. I can't tell you about too many times when I thought it was really very effective because you still have these rules to worry about, right? Is it visible? Is it engaging? And it's simple. So I'll tell you a couple of stories of what I've seen. Like, and I've told this one before because this is the one that I don't know. I just remember this one a lot. This presenter had a really cool idea. She had an acronym, which we call like a roadmap for her presentation. You know, and it was an acronym that went along with her main points. And what she did was she asked for volunteers from the audience whenever she got to a new point to come to the stage or come up to where she was presenting. And she had a t-shirt with the acronym, like each letter. So it was like A, B, C, D. So the first person comes up and she gives them a t-shirt and it says A, and they stand there while she's talking about A. And then when she did B, the next person came up, and, you know, so this went on. But the thing is, from where I was sitting, I couldn't really see the letters on the shirt, and it spelled something. But instead of being really effective, it was awkward. It was awkward because she had those people standing there the entire time. And, you know, like it was funny the first letter, but then it was like, so like for this 30-minute presentation, these 4 people are standing there, you know, the one that started first was standing for like 25 minutes, you know, and it became awkward. So it was kind of a cool idea, but it wasn't visible. Not everybody could see the letters. It started out to be engaging, but then it became distracting because why are these people still standing there? Why don't you let them sit down? You know, it should have been simple, but it didn't pass the other 2 and it didn't work out. And then one time I saw this guy, he was an amazing presenter and he was doing science experiments on the stage and relating it to his message, you know, like that thing where you drop mementos in a bottle and the bottle blows up and that kind of stuff, which was cool, you know. So the visuals were really cool. It was like the stuff he was doing, but it didn't make sense how it related to what he was talking about. So it was like, well, this is cool to watch, but what's the point of that? You know, so was it visible? I could see it. I'm not sure everybody could see it because, you know, it was a pretty big room. It was engaging. I mean, like I was really interested in what he was doing, but it became distracting because I didn't understand why he was doing it. I didn't get the point. He wasn't relating that to his points, his concepts well enough for it to make sense. Instead, it just looked like he was doing cool stuff just because it looked cool, you know. So it turned out not to be simple. There was a big mess on the stage, or on, you know, it wasn't a stage, you know, up where he was doing the presentation. It was a big mess, and it was someone's conference room, and the carpet was wet, and it turned out to be anything but simple. It was actually kind of humorous. It was such a mess. So sometimes these best ideas, you know, these best ideas. One that I saw that I liked was they used hats to, oh gosh, how did they do it? To symbolize different things that they were talking about. And they had bought these plastic hats, you know, like plastic top hats and plastic cowboy hats. And so for each point how it related, they would spin out some of these hats in the audience liked that. It was cool, you know, it reminded them of the main points, and they liked it, you know. The only mistake they made was they decided, you know, like the cowboy hat, they could just flip it out like this and someone would grab it and it hit somebody in the face. And that wasn't fun. I would never throw things, no matter what, never throw things, because that can always get you in trouble. But that was kind of cool. So again, you know, the props can be good. The main reason I use props sometimes, but the main reason I don't is because, to tell you the truth, it's complicated to haul stuff around like that. You know, it's complicated. You have to pay for it. It's expensive. You never know if it's going to go exactly the way you want to. And then you got to get it there. And depending on where you're presenting, you know, like if I'm presenting at a conference, I got to ship this thing to Texas. Like, what? How am I going to do that? Now, if you're doing it in your own organization, that could be cool, you know. I was recently at a place called Arthrex, which is a medical supply company in Naples, Florida. They have this all set up to teach people to do presentations, how to use their instruments. And actually on each table, they had the instruments that you could play with as they were teaching. That was pretty good use of props, you know, because you could actually try what they were showing you with that. And you could see it on the screen that they had there for you. Expensive? Oh, yes. But effective. So yeah, again, remember, visible, engaging, simple. All right, let's get to the big PP, the big PowerPoint here. So I thought you might find this interesting. PowerPoint actually was conceptualized in 1984. And it was just a 2-page proposal for a computer program to present presentation graphics. And it took 6 years for it actually to be launched. But in May 1990, voila, we have PowerPoint. Full disclosure, there are many competitors of PowerPoint now, and there's some great stuff out there. So even though I keep saying PowerPoint, yes, this could apply to Keynote. Yes, this could apply to Prezi. This could apply to all these other amazing products that are out there that are similar to PowerPoint. PowerPoint is still my weapon of choice, but whatever it is, we're talking about slides. Okay, so if I use PowerPoint, you know, don't feel like this doesn't apply to me. It absolutely does. Whatever tool you find that works great for you, that's great. But all the concepts that I'm going to talk about still apply. Okay, so using slides. Limit your information on your slides. That's the first big thing. 3 bullet points. Stop. If you get much more than 3 bullet points, we get back into that distraction thing. Am I supposed to listen to you, or am I supposed to read the slide? Which one do you want me to do? So if you put more than 3 bullet points up there, I'm having trouble keeping up here. I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to do. 3 is a good number. People can kind of remember things in 3. That's another good reason. And then we get into the whole how big is the font thing. If you get more than 3 bullet points, you've done this. You have to reduce the font. You have to make the letters smaller so you can fit your bullet points. Now we're running into that visibility problem. So 3 bullet points is my best advice. Do I ever do 4? Oh yeah, sure. Do I do 5? I've done it a couple of times. You know, it depends on how much text it is, but I try to stick with that rule of 3. Consider a picture show. I used to have, you know, just those bullet points on my slide, and now the picture is usually what dominates my slide more than the text, in case you haven't noticed. The The pictures make it much more engaging and visual and easier to see. Talking about a slideshow here. So I've got this big projector up here and just very little text. A picture show helps people to relate the concept in their mind. And you know what else it's really good for? It's good for helping you as the presenter to remember where you are. The picture. You connect the picture to what you know you want to say right here. So as a presenter, you know, instead of being tempted to read your slide to see what it says that I'm supposed to say, you're looking at that picture going, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to talk about creating a picture show. I got it. I know what to say, right? So consider a picture show. That would be a good idea. And here you go, keeping your font simple and large. That's so important. You can see some examples here, 32 point, 28 point, too small, forget it. I try to do almost everything in 32, almost everything. Sometimes I'll make my titles larger just so that I emphasize this is the title, and it'll be like 44, but most all of my text is usually 32. So keep the font really large. Again, that visibility thing, if they can't see it, why are you even bothering making the slide? So make it visible, make that font really big. No matter how much information you include on a slide, or how important the information is, or how small you made your font, or how hard it is for people in the back to see your slide, or what might be blocking the screen, never, ever read verbatim. Oops. I wasn't supposed to read that verbatim. That's an example of a bad slide. On many fronts. Yeah, you do not want to read your slides verbatim. You've seen that done. It's not pretty, right? You've seen it done. So you don't want to read your slides, and really that's just way too much text on a slide right there. It's not even pretty, is it? Okay, I'm going to show you some of my favorite tips, some of my favorite stuff. Most of this comes from PowerPoint. I know other programs have the ability to do some of the same things, but I think PowerPoint's the most widely used. So I'm just going to show you some of my favorites. Does that sound good? You ready? Some of my favorites? All right. I love Smartart. I don't know if you've seen it up there, if you know that it's there on PowerPoint. You go insert and then Smartart. There's a little button there. And when you do that, here's what comes up, and you get to choose what graphic you want. This makes it so easy to make some really nice slides that are really easy to read. I'm going to try the bravest thing ever. I'm going to try to demonstrate it live. Are you ready for this? Can you stand it? I don't know if you can stand it because I don't know if I can do it. Let me see if I can do it. Bear with me while we try it, because I got to end the show. I got to get back to my this one so that I can share this with you. I put that up here. I'm going to try to show you what this looks like. And so you're seeing this screen now, you can see. Okay. So what I do is I go up here to my little screen, and I go home, and here's a convert to Smartart button. You see that? And the funny thing is it's shaded out. It's not going to let me do that when I share my screen. Why? Why is it being that way with me? Well, I can't demonstrate it live, even though I practiced this earlier and it worked just fine, but it's grayed out. I don't know why. So anyway, when you press the little convert to Smartart button, what happens is the box pops up and you can play with it, and you can see how all these different things are going to look when you use Smartart. So I'm sorry I can't demonstrate it, can't explain it, but let's go back to the full show. Let me stop sharing for a second. Let me get that show back. Man, I practiced that this morning. It worked, you know. See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm demonstrating bad form. Oh no. All right, you can see my screen again now. Yes? No, because I didn't share it. Don't worry, I will. I got this. Okay, here we go. Sorry that didn't work. I thought that would be fun. All right, so now you can see me, right? Okay, so using Smartart, I love it. Also screenshot. Now, I know there are screen clipping tools out there, but this one is so easy to use. I don't know if any of you have tried this. You go to insert, and then you can insert with screenshot anything you want from the screen. I use this all the time. Like if I'm working in an organization, I'll go do a screenshot of their logo or of a picture on their website or anything you want. It's so easy. You just put your little lines around it and it just copies it right into your document. So screenshot, if you haven't played with that, I really recommend it. Because what I can do is I can go here to screenshot. I can either copy the whole screen or just a clipping. See, take a quick snapshot of a part of the screen. It's so fast and easy. If you haven't played with this, you got to play with this. I think it's really effective. Text boxes. Did you know that you can make your text boxes any shape that you want? All you have to do is go in and make a text box and then change the shape, and you can make it anything you want. It's really very simple to do and can be kind of nice on some slides. Some folks like to use this as a handout for PowerPoint. Have you seen that done? Like they'll say, oh, I want to give a handout. Please don't use this as a handout for your audience. Why would I say that? Okay, there's a couple of reasons why I think this is a terrible handout. The first thing is if you've done slides right, the way that we've been talking, all they're going to see is pretty much a picture show. The print, any print on it is going to be so small, they're not going to be able to read it anyway. And honestly, if your PowerPoint show is so effective that I can give you a printout of the PowerPoint show and you feel like you've been at my presentation, then why did you come to my presentation? Let me just give you the slides. So I think it's very challenging for us as presenters to make our slides something that people don't want, something that won't help them at all. I want them to know that they need to be engaged in the presentation, not just read the slides. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I have to go to conferences, when I get to go to conferences, I should say, you know, and I'm torn between two sessions and they have the handouts on there and I can look at their slides. That's how I choose. If I can get the whole presentation from the slides, then I've got it. Let me go to the one that I can't get. So please don't use this as a handout. It should not really be an effective handout for your audiences. But this you should use, because this is for you as a presenter. And what this is like your study guide. In PowerPoint, you have the ability to go in and it's called an export. It's a file export. And with that, you create handouts and you select that you want your notes next to slides. So this is what is in my note boxes at the bottom of my slides. This is what they say. And this is what I print out to use like today. I don't have a whole lot of notes, but you can see my notes are on the side. So this is what I use to study before I present so that I can remember what I'm supposed to say where. And then also I have the visual of all the upcoming slides just available to me. I like this because I can use this before I get in front of an audience, like when I'm backstage or when I'm, you know, getting ready for it, or I'm in the audience waiting for my turn. I can kind of look at this and it helps me to feel a little more confident in what I know is coming up. So I would recommend using this. It's a really, really good tool. I also really enjoyed this, and this is something that PowerPoint does. It will design slides for you. Did you know that? It's cool. So if you look over here on the right side of your bar, when you're designing slides, there'll be design ideas. And when you click on it, it gives you all these ideas. Now, these pictures in this demonstration, all I did was put these 3 pictures up here. You can see I didn't even try to arrange them. I just said, oh, I want these 3 pictures. I just put them right on here using screen clip. And over here, I get all these ideas for how my slide could look. I don't have to do anything. I just have to just pick one. And when I pick one, there it is. There's my slide. And it looks like I spent a lot of time on this, but actually PowerPoint did all the work for me. So I love that one. It helps me to design my slides and make them look really good. That's one of my favorite things. Reuse slides. Don't know if you've seen this, reusing slides. When you're making presentations like this is, I'm going to do, this is my next presentation for you guys. This is the next in our series. Actually, this is the last one, Delivery, Performing Like a Pro. When I'm developing this one, I can go over here and choose from all the other shows that I've done. when I pull it up, I can just click on it and it'll insert those slides in there for me. If I want to reuse a slide, I don't have to recreate them or copy them. I just click on it. It'll insert it right in the show for me. It's called reuse slides. You ever seen that before? That's a pretty cool feature. I really like that. It saves me some time because I can pull, I call it, making the Frankenstein monster. I'm doing a new presentation and I go to my other slideshows and I pull some of this one and some of that one, part from here, part from there. And pretty soon I have a whole new presentation monster. So this is a really good tool, reusing your slides. Yeah. Love those slides, right? Love those slides. They can be really great tools. So I hope that gives you some tips on making your slides a lot more effective. Now, pictures are also great. And of course, a lot of those pictures are what you use on your slides. So however you use them, wherever you get them, sometimes I have posters, but a lot of this is, something used on your slides. I just wanted to cover a few tips for you on how to select your pictures, okay? So the first thing is it has to be relevant. I tell a story in some other sessions about that. The first time that one hit me was I was doing a presentation and I was talking about visuals and I was looking for something really pretty to put on the slide. And I found this waterfall. It was beautiful. It's like, oh, I want to be there. And I said, well, I'm talking about visuals, so I'll put this pretty picture on the slide. And while I was presenting, I had two people in the room get actually argumentative about where that waterfall was. There was someone in the audience who swore that he had visited that site and had been in that exact spot. And another person in the room said, that's not where that is. I know exactly where that is. And they were arguing about it. I'm like, man, did I screw up? That was the wrong picture. It wasn't relevant. It was just a pretty picture and it took the entire presentation off track. And I know that sounds funny, but that actually happened to me. And I was like, God, you got to make sure that these slides are relevant. You need to be careful about that. So make sure they're relevant to whatever you're talking about. Like this slide, see, it's a pretty little living room, but I made the pictures in picture frames, right? It's relevant. So you go, oh yeah, that's cute, but here's what's important. Make sure they're interesting. Interesting. See, isn't that interesting? Just a big picture. Whenever you can, make it personal. I'm going to show you an example of that and try to use high quality pictures. The good news is there are so many free resources right now for us to get free pictures. My two favorites are Pexel, P-E-X-E-L. It's all free. It's common share. You can use it. No one's going to sue you. It's wonderful. The other one that I'm really enjoying is Canva. C-A-N-V-A. I'm really enjoying that. They have a lot of free pictures on there. To be honest with you, I value it so much. The pictures on there are so great and so plentiful that it's kind of done away with my need for other software. So I actually purchased it. I felt like I should support them. I think it cost me, I think it was like $79 for a year or something, but I thought it was worth it because I was taking so much of their art. I felt like I felt guilty about not paying for it because they have so many great things and so many great designs. So Canva and Unsplash is another one that's free. That's really nice. So there are lots of places where you can get great pictures. And to be honest with you, I spend an insane amount of time. I think it's because I enjoy it, of finding pictures that I think are relevant, interesting, high quality, as personal as they can be, and free. With personal, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about with personal, but I just want to say on that too, is that your slides should be personal in such a way that they're relevant to your audience as well. So if you're speaking to people who are in the medical profession, then find pictures of people wearing scrubs. Find pictures of people in a medical setting. They're relevant and they're personal. Don't use pictures at a construction site if they're in the medical profession. And if you're doing something for people who are in construction, don't use people in scrubs. So that's the nice thing about this software. We have the ability. Sometimes I look at a picture and say, this is too formal for this audience. They don't dress like this in their office, so I don't use that. Sometimes I look at it and say, this is too casual for this audience. They don't dress like this coming to work. I had a really interesting time with someone I was coaching because they were using a lot of pretty cool pictures of nice, really young people wearing jeans with the knees that are, out and everything. And I'm like, is this how they dress in your office? Oh no, but it would be cool if we could. I'm like, tell me about these pictures that you're using, because they didn't relate to the audience. So personal and relating to your audience at the same time. Kids are always a winner. You can always find a way to use cute kids, right? So in the certification class I teach in my orientation, I talk about, and just think when you're finished with certification, you're going to have a graduation. It's going to be great. I can use this picture. It's relevant. It's cute. All right. It's engaging. This one I use puppy dog, right? Is that adorable? That's my puppy dog. Isn't she the cutest thing? Yeah. So, here's the thing about being a manager. It's hard work. And sometimes you got to be tough. Even when they look at you with those puppy dog eyes, you have to stand up. So see, I can, whatever my message is, I can relate it and use it. So kids and dogs are always good. Animals, people like those pictures. I try to make my pictures so that it gets my audience to where I need to go. And this one, I'm doing a brainstorming exercise. I'm looking for ideas. This was for an SBDC audience. You can see that I put the logo up there for SBDC. I gave them we're going to have a group discussion. This picture, the only thing I don't like about this is it's a little blurry and it's on purpose. And I prefer it to be sharp and clear because people think it's a bad picture. But I just love the boards in the back that I can use to put, let's talk about ideas and let's brainstorm with this, because I've got a whole group of people we're going to brainstorm. So that's how I used it. Plus it allowed me to put their logo up there and really personalize. This one I took right off the website. This was at an SBDC conference and I had an SBDC audience. So I used this, and there are people in this that can recognize themselves. When people see themselves and their coworkers on screen in your slides, they love it. So definitely, if you're doing a presentation for your organization, go around and take some of your own pictures and find a way to use those in the slides. They love it. I was doing a presentation for a beach community. They were working on their strategic plan. I went out a few days before the presentation and I just took pictures all over the beach and I used those in my backgrounds and made them relevant to what we were talking about. They loved it. They loved the presentation so much. I was a hero just because they were looking at pictures of their own backyard. It's very personal. Changing the way you do your slides. I wanted to show you a couple of before and after examples because I used to do slides like this and thought they looked really nice. And things have evolved, a lot due to pictures, but this is simple. It's visual, it's engaging enough. The definition of communication was the point of this. The definition of communication is the exchange of thoughts, messages, or information as by speech, signals, writing, or behavior. And you can see I really have to look at that actually to say that because it's a little clumsy to say, but I was trying to give them, the definition of communication. That slide now looks like this. The exchange of thoughts, messages, or information as by writing, speech, signals, or behavior. You see the difference just using the picture and putting the words there? It's much more engaging, right? It's much more visual. And it's at the same time actually simpler than what I had in the before slide, right? So very easy to use. These are all free pictures that I got off Pexel or Canva. And I can just put my words in there in any way I want. Here's another before. Oh, no, this is the testing one. I wanted to show you this. This is just a picture that I found, and I'm here talking about all the things you need to test before you do a presentation. And what I did was I went over here on the board and I made a checklist for them. You need to check your projector, your computer, your PowerPoint, your remote, your markers. So if somebody wants to write that down, they can. But it's an engaging, interesting background. Here we are in a conference room. We're getting ready to make a presentation. You have to test all of your equipment. So just another example of how to make your slides kind of engaging and different. Here's another one. I was talking about handout strategies. So I took the board in the back, put my bullets back there. Here's a guy handing someone a handout, and I say, minimize the number, don't stop your class, proofread and double check. So they get the message, but it's engaging, it's visual, and it's simple at the same time, and they get the message. Here's another before and after. Before, this is how I used to say, above all, you are the boss. In one sentence, describe the job of the boss. The one big change in doing visuals now is make that picture as big as you can. Make it a picture show. Look at the difference in that slide. Above all, you are the boss. In one sentence, describe the job of the boss. See the difference in that? Same picture, but a much, much more pleasing visual slide, right? One more before and after. You have to have confidence. This is an important management trait. Look at the after. Right? You see? So take that picture and make it the big part of your slide, and that visual will stick with everyone a lot better. Remember, is it visible? Is it engaging? Right? And is it simple? That's our test. So everything that we do, we're testing against those three things. Right, I'm ready to answer some questions. Do we have any questions?
I have one. So I do a lot of presentations, and usually the presentation slides double up as reference text. So because we have a lot of content to cover, and usually people would refer to the decks afterwards, or that's what I hope that they do, because there's just too much details, right? I typically present roadmaps to the team. So I was listening to the presentation, and like, while I would want to try some of those, but I think I do have a limitation in which there's only so much that I can, I guess, remove from the content. What would you suggest me do?
So June, here's a simple tactic for you, okay? Take your PowerPoint slide with all the stuff you have on the slide, cut it, paste it down in notes, and replace everything on the slide with a picture. Now, what you do with those notes is you make handouts for your participants. Give them a separate handout so that it follows your slide presentation, but they have a separate handout. And here's the other thing, June. On the handout, don't write everything out for them. The whole point is for them to listen to you and fill in their own thoughts. You really don't want them to just write down what you thought. You want them to write down what they're thinking as they figure out how to apply this going forward. How are they going to do this? So do some of those tricks where you leave a blank word in the middle with an underline and make them fill it in, so that they have to listen to you to fill that in, so that they're saying, now what is that point? So that they're not missing it. Because the way you're doing it, you're making it too easy for me to zone out and not listen to you. You're going to give it to me anyway. Why do I need to listen to you? Why bother? So we've got to make them, engaged. They've got to be interested in what they're seeing, and at the same time capturing it so that they can use it going forward, but not just from printing out slides. Does that make sense?
Good. That makes sense. I'll try it out.
Yeah, try it out. Yeah, I make handouts when I need to, but I don't just fill in all the blanks for them. Sometimes it'll be just a question like, why do you need to do this? And then I tell them to write down what you think. But if you have technical things that you need to list for them, I understand that. So you can use maybe some, blanks where they have to fill in a couple of the terms themselves and that kind of thing.
Very good. Thank you for the question too, June. Is anybody else has any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in there. There have been a few comments, and I have one, of course, as always, but I never ceases to amaze me, Lorna, at how often I find something new with you. I've been using PowerPoint since the early 90s, okay? And I've seen it go through so many design phases and everything. I have never seen slide design ever.
Oh, wow.
I was like, whoa, that was easy. I'm too busy putting things together on the slide, taking hours, because I enjoy it too, taking hours to do so. When the truth is, I could have just had it think for me and say, oh yeah, that's sort of what I want to do, and maybe make adjustments from there. That's huge. That is a huge time saver. Thank you so much for that particular tip. That's just for me.
It's really awesome. And you know what happened to me, Brett? Like, I had this person who gave me their slides to use for something because we were creating something together. And I'm like, man, these slides are nice. Like, you must have spent a lot of time on this. And then I saw that stupid little design button and I'm like, you dog.
I feel that way right now. I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so well thought out. And you have options,
So many. I think really the lesson there, Brett, is I'm hoping that people hear is like, yeah, we've got this amazing software. I mean, we love those slides, but we don't take time always to just spend a few minutes learning about it and the changes that have been made and the tools that are there to make it so much easier for us. So we need to dedicate some time just to, look at that little bar up there and see what is this and play with it, and see
Right.
what happens. It's incredible.
True.
It won't blow up. It won't, I promise.
It won't? Okay, that's good news. If anybody has any questions, go ahead. My last little comment about that is also the one thing I didn't hear you really talk about today, but knowing PowerPoint and hearing some of your other classes, you talk about transitions. And
Right.
I was wondering, do you do that a lot with visuals? Any recommendations on that as far as tips for some of our people out there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll should have included that, but good thing. I talk about transitions a lot when I talk about content and how important it is when you have your main points, to transition from point to point without just doing it so abruptly. Sometimes, Brett, depending on the presentation, and you saw a few of them in here, I use the same slide over again with different content because visually, oh, there's the break. We're going to the next part. So sometimes I'll decide on what's that transition slide going to be. And if I have 3 points, I copy it 3 times, position it where it's supposed to be, and then change the text to go with it. So that I think that helps people to understand, oh, there's that slide. That means we're going to the next point. So if they say the same thing over and over again, they say, oh, okay, here we go to the next thing. Now, what is this next thing? So yeah, that's a really, really good point.
Well,
I think a translation slide's important.
I see you use it so skillfully all the time, and I noticed it wasn't actually in this particular
I'm
presentation,
gonna add that here.
but I just thought it was. I've seen you use it before, and you told us some really good information about those. So I just thought, wow,
Yeah, thanks for noticing that. That's good.
sure. Yeah, I pay attention in your classes. I think you're amazing.
Yeah, we
with
have
that-
some more coming too. Actually, I was going to show you. The next one is stories,
Good.
November 10th. And then the final one will be on delivery. And all the previous ones are available to them, right? They can go back, and we've done 3 others before this one, and they're all out there on demand.
On our YouTube channel. In fact, it was brought up. I was going to mention that it wasn't really one of the questions. I thought I would do it in the final part here, but basically we do have a YouTube channel, and feel free to contact us at the end of this. We're going to send you a link to that as well. Maybe if Judy's available right now, she can put it in the chat box for us. But at the same time, we have many of the other classes that Lorna has given us in the past. I highly recommend all of them, as well as other presenters there. So yeah. And you say you're coming up on November 10th. You tell me when, and I will be more than happy to tell you all the fun things coming up. Would you like to have any other closing comments?
I really wanted to close by just what you brought up for me, which I appreciate. It was just understanding that there are so many tools out there. There's so much software. We get kind of caught up sometimes in the tech of all of it. Like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to use these science experiments. This is cool. They'll like this. This is fun. Or I'm going to buy these T-shirts, or I'm going to make these slides really cool. I'm going to do all these animations and swing things in. And really, you got to decide, is this engaging or is it distracting? But take time to really learn about your tools and learn how simple it can be for you to make really powerful, effective slides.
Thank you.
And visuals.
And if you notice now in the chat box, everybody, the YouTube channel is up there. So you can feel free to click on that and it'll take you straight there. And please feel free to check out all the wonderful education that's available to you for free there. Thank you for that, June. And great. Lorna, thank you so much for today and for every day that we get to have you listed here. Yes, can join the other webinars by registering. Oh, yes. Yes, you can. In fact, while we're there, I guess I should just take that over and say thank you so much again from Lorna. And hopefully you can see the upcoming webinars that are coming now. On October 27th, which is later, that's today, by the way. Whoa. Later on today, Melissa Forciat's going to be here, boosting holiday sales. October 28th, creating a marketing strategy That'll be tomorrow, as she's finishing up a 3-part series. Feel free to go back and watch the other one that started it yesterday. And November 8th, financial negotiations workshop for minorities and women-owned businesses by Rebecca Schultz. November 9th, we have how to attract online shoppers during the holiday season. For those of you who didn't know it, the holiday season now lasts for like 6 months, okay? So getting started on it for a small business right about now is a good time. November 10th, of course, telling stories and everything you need to know by guess who? That's right, Lorna Kivy. She's back, and we're going to be really happy to see that one as well. Your Mission to Success, Veteran Businesses on November 11th with Rebecca Schultz, and many others. If you want, please visit sbdc.nctc.edu, our website, for more information about that. In fact, while you're there, you can also schedule a meeting, a one-on-one confidential meeting with an advisor if you'd like to. And you can have many of our resources there, and remember that they are free to you. We're happy to supply all small business owners and entrepreneurs information to help make their businesses successful. And we wouldn't be able to do it without, of course, the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, North Central Texas College as well. And so we really appreciate everybody that participated today and in the future. So don't miss all of the classes. And this will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you.